came here to say that you don't really want it with us. Yerrr Sports Show came here to say that you don't really want it with us. Yerrr Sports Show came here to say.
Yeah.
First off, before we get into anything, happy anniversary to the first couple of the Job Chase Network, BK Matt and his wife Talia. We love you guys.
You know,
Definitely love you guys.
there's a couple of things that I know for sure, right? In this world, one is that Tay will always hate Jordan. Two is that BK Matt and Talia are awesome, and BK Matt's a great husband. Awesome taking the day off to spend his anniversary with his wife. I know a lot of people who be like, I still got to do the podcast. We'll go celebrate later. Three, as a Syracuse grad, Georgetown still sucks. And I'm sorry, Matt. I love you. It's your anniversary and all, but Irving's still a bum. Those are the four things that I know, no matter what, in life.
Welcome back to another episode of the Yerrr Sports Show. I am your host, Big Baby, aka the soul of R&B.
Get it,
and to my right, we have the Queen Tay.
Hey everybody, happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. And to her right, we have the professor, the voice of a generation, Pete Rosado.
I'm still waiting for an email from Mike Tenay saying with a cease and desist about using the professor name. I'm waiting for that. Really, when that happens, I'm gonna mark out because I got an email from Tenay. But you know, he's got rights to the name. But whatever, I've been feeling. You know, Dre, I've been feeling like Woj the last 2 days, man.
Bro, I've been feeling like Woj the past 2 days. Listen, if you look at the page, if you look at the Instagram page, every time Woj puts it.
And you know what's funny, Dre? You and Tay, we were all talking like, what was it, 2 weeks ago? And we were like, man, we're going to have no sports news. Everything's shutting down. Everything's going to get real slow. Tay was like, oh, my God, we might have to talk baseball. We might have – I talked about the Masters last week. That's how little sports news we had. By the way, was won by Dustin Johnson at 20 under.
Yes, I know. I forgot to add that inside.
Yeah. But, you know, that's how little news we had. And then the NBA decided to go Operation Warp Speed and just get started immediately. And now we have too much neuse.
Man, that was a lot to keep up with. I'm like, some of the stuff I'm like, I'm not going to post about what is what's his name? Like, I'm not gonna post about the little, the sub names, but like the people that I posted were big deals. So, but
it's funny because the draft picks usually get like this nice little month to get acclimated and they get celebrated. Like, oh my God, first round draft pick, lottery pick, this guy, news conference. Yo, what was it? 2 days after the draft, free agency started.
Right, 2 days after the draft. Here's your jersey. You're gonna be playing on night one.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
No G League. No, that's it. Nope. Just play.
And you know what? I hate this because I feel like Tay is gonna love this right now. I feel like Tay got the greatest ammunition in a double shot this week because now she gets to hate on MJ as an owner for what he did in the draft and what he did in free agency.
Oh, man.
So this is only going to get better for Tay.
Right. So before we start quick hits, how was y'all week? Tay, how was your week?
Intense.
Oh,
Had a lot of work. Wasn't really feeling up. Like I have a lot. Like I've been feeling really like sick recently, but not COVID, but just having a little, feel a little under the weather. But I'm up. I'm ready.
This weather change, that's what it is.
What?
That rapid weather change. I felt it yesterday. I felt like really my body felt like I got those aches, those chill aches. Like, and I was just like checking my fever, automatically getting really worried because, but I was like normal body temperature. Everything was good. It was just my bones were hurting. And
I felt it in my bones.
Yeah, it's this rapid temperature change. It was brick this week and then it got nice yesterday and today. It's supposed to get brick again next week. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. So crazy. Quick hits.
Yeah.
Get right into it.
Let's go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, quick hits for the week of November 21st. Let's get right into the biggest news of the week. NBA free agency. And just 25 minutes ago, news broke that Gordon Hayward has signed a 4-year, $120 million contract with the Charlotte Hornets. He missed 142 games, including the playoffs, in his 3 years with the Celtics. Only missed 42 games in his first 7 years playing for the Jazz. Mind you, when he did play for the Celtics and was healthy, he averaged 14 points, 5.5 rebounds, and almost 4 assists a game. Interesting wrinkle to this story, ladies and gentlemen. Gordon Hayward almost went to the Charlotte Hornets back in 2014 when his first contract ran up. He signed an offer sheet with Charlotte, and Utah matched it, re-signing him to Utah. So kind of coming full circle there for Gordon Hayward. Fred VanVleet signed a 4-year, $85 million deal to stay in Toronto. Rumors have it that in meetings with Toronto, VanVleet has said, I've already got my championship, and now I'm just looking to cash out. Staying with Toronto, 4 years, $85 million. Lakers make 2 big moves this week as free agency started. They signed reigning 6th man of the year, Montrezl Harrell, from the neighboring Clippers. 2 years, $20 million, actually getting the full mid-level exception. Many people saying that he could have gotten more on the open market. Reigning 6th man of the year, probably could have gotten near a $20 million a year deal, but going for 2 years, $20 million to the Lakers. Wesley Matthews signing with the Lakers, 1 year, $3.6 million. In what was an original trade for Drew Holiday and a bevy of draft picks has now turned into a 4-team deal that has now moved Steven Adams to New Orleans to join Zion Williamson. Draft picks moving amongst 4 teams, Drew Holiday moving, but that trade has been reworked so many times over the last couple of days.
Peter, real quick, but guess who got another number 1 pick, first round pick?
Oklahoma City Thunder.
Got you. Okay. That is 17. That's officially 17 now because we were on the watch for the whole week. Like they're gonna get 17. They're gonna get 17. So now they have 17 first round picks in 6 years.
Very true. Dwight Howard leaving the Lakers to go to Philly in an interesting move, signing a 1-year deal to go to the Philadelphia 76ers.
That doesn't even feel right.
Interestingly, moments after having tweeted that he was staying with the Lakers and happy to stay in purple and gold, then deleting that tweet and then signing with the Philadelphia 76ers.
That sounds like a really Dwight Howard thing to do.
And I understand completely why people do not like Dwight Howard, because that is super Dwight right there. Like, I understand the move, why he went, because the Lakers, with JaVale McGee, AD, the middle of the court is full.
Yeah, but they still found room for him, though. You get what I'm saying? Like, he was still integral at certain points during that finals run just a couple of months ago, just last month.
Right, I agree, but I think he's gonna have more run at center when Embiid sits, because they don't have Horford. There's nobody else in the lane, but Simmons when he's lobbing it, but they're not.
It will be interesting though to see Dwight Howard being coached by Doc Rivers. Boy. That's going to be a very interesting thing, because we know that the big prevailing story on Dwight has always been his tenacity and his work ethic, and Doc is not going to let that slide. That much we know.
That's going to be the same for Embiid too. Embiid and Simmons.
In what was originally probably the most head-scratching contract of free agency before Gordon Hayward's today, Danilo Gallinari signed a 3-year, $61.5 million contract with the Atlanta Hawks in free agency, leaving the Denver Nuggets. I just want to say, though, can we talk about how the Knicks
the Thunder. He left the Thunder.
The Thunder. I apologize. Can we talk about how the Knicks have had 2 foreign-born players that have both flourished since leaving the Knicks, in Gallinari and Kristaps Porzingis? I think they didn't give Gallinari a fair enough chance. No, he got thrown away in the Melo trade.
Yeah.
Bro.
That's why I thought he was with the Nuggets. Talking about the Knicks,
He was with the Nuggets for a little bit, and then he bounced. He bounced to he stayed with the Nuggets for a while, and then he got traded to OKC.
Yeah. Talking about the Knicks missed out on all three of their big rumored free agents targets. Fred VanVleet, Gordon Hayward, and Davis Bertans, the big 6'6" Latvian who re-signed with the Washington Wizards. So the Knicks, what did they do after clearing $40 million in cap space? They signed swingman Alec Burks out of Utah, 1 year, $6 million, and trade for Ed Davis.
The Knicks gonna keep nicking.
See, out of those, that's okay because those are not, money eaters. But we still got a week and a half left, about a week left in free agency before
everybody has that pulse on is Westbrook coming to New York or not, right?
Right.
Speaking of former Knicks, Bobby Portis and DJ Augustine both signed multi-year deals with Milwaukee. Milwaukee has been in the center of a huge trade storm after their sign and trade went south with Bogdanovich opting out of the trade, saying he never agreed to the trade. Funny story, the Lakers apparently have very serious interest in Bogdanovich now that he is entering free agency. And in the last big free agent news for the NBA, the Nets, the Brooklyn Nets have re-signed sharpshooter Joe Harris. 4 years, $75 million. They said that he was probably the most important thing that they wanted to get done in free agency. And speaking of the Nets, did y'all see the subs that GM Sean Marks was throwing at the Houston Rockets in his press conference this week?
Yo.
He basically in so many words says, we're not the Knicks. You're not going to make us blow up our team for right now. And you know what? Again, Sean Marks has learned. He wasn't there when it happened. But Sean Marks learned from what the Nets did with the Garnett-Pierce trade.
Boy.
Where they blew up their team in the hopes of getting a title in 2-3 years and then went south real quick. In other news, Seth Curry traded by the Dallas Mavericks to Philly, and now we're just waiting. Austin Rivers opting out of his contract. We're waiting for Austin Rivers to get signed by the Philadelphia 76ers, and then it'd just be a big Rivers family reunion in Philly. The other big news coming out of the NBA, overshadowed a bit by the draft and free agency. Warriors forward Klay Thompson will miss the entire 2020-2021 season as he tore his Achilles in his right leg. Remember, his ACL injury was in his left leg last year. Funny, I don't want to say funny story, but when they first announced the injury and they mentioned that it was the right leg, the opposite leg, the first thing I thought about was either his other ACL or his Achilles. Usually you find that people with ACL injuries or Achilles injuries in one leg overcompensate on the other leg, which can usually lead to quick injuries in the opposite leg. So unfortunately, Klay Thompson will be missing his second straight full season in the NBA. Going into our other sports in the NFL, Jake Scott, the Super Bowl MVP for the perfect 17-0 Miami Dolphins team. Many people may not remember that name. Died at the age of 75 this week. Still the only fully perfect NFL team in existence, the 17-0 Miami Dolphins. The New York Giants fired their offensive line coach, Mark Colombo, after a bit of a dust-up and a yelling match with coach Joe Judge. Immediately got rid of him. Apparently, the backstory to this was that Joe Judge hired a consultant for the offensive line who had apparently interviewed as the offensive line coach over the summer. Did not get hired. They hired Colombo, but they hired this gentleman as a consultant, and Colombo felt like he was being undermined and went and approached Joe Judge about it, led to a bit of a dust-up, and now Mark Colombo no longer the offensive line coach for the Giants. Arizona Cardinals nose tackle Corey Peters will be missing the season with a knee injury. And in big news out of the NFL, apparently, with Drew Brees going on injured reserve, the New Orleans Saints have decided to start Taysom Hill as their starting quarterback over 5-year starter Jameis Winston.
So I have to cut you off right there, and that was a correction I was supposed to send to you. So apparently on SportsCenter last night, the coach of the Saints, his name is slipping my mind right now.
Sean Payton.
Sean Payton. He said that. I never said that. I never said Hill was starting. I never said Bridgewater was starting. I just said I'm not Bridgewater.
Winston,
Was it Winston?
Mr. Crab Legs.
Yeah, Mr. Crab Legs. They never said he's not never said neither of them were starting. So he just said we're gonna have a starter out there. I haven't announced it yet.
Well, every big media outlet has run with Taysom Hill being the starter. And in one of the most hilarious clips of the week, if you didn't see Stephen A. Smith going off on this decision by the New Orleans Saints, it was a hilarious one to watch, of course. In NCAA football, more cancellations this weekend in NCAA games due to COVID-19. And legendary college football coach and ESPN analyst Lou Holtz tested positive for coronavirus. He's 83, super at-risk age for COVID-19. Sending all of our best wishes to the Holtz family for the continued wellness of legendary coach Lou Holtz. In some quick baseball news, Milwaukee Brewers promote Matt Arnold to be their GM for the year. The Chicago Cubs, Theo Epstein has stepped down as the president of baseball operations. He will be succeeded by Jed Hoyer, who was an assistant GM with him in Boston, started in San Diego for a while. So Theo Epstein out in Chicago. There are rumors that he will be courted by a couple of other teams, but Theo looking probably to get out of baseball right now. But, the man brought a title to Boston Red Sox. The man brought a title to the Chicago Cubs. The man will have, I think, a Hall of Fame legacy in the game of baseball, regardless of if he comes back or not. And finally, the Yankees, Aroldis Chapman had his suspension for next season reduced to 2 games after his appeal got okayed. We're still waiting on baseball free agency to start the winter meetings right around the corner. But right now the Mets, a lot of moves from the Mets, Steve Cohen and that group over there. Robinson Cano for the Mets tested positive for stanzanol, a second straight PED bust. He is suspended for the entire season. The Mets will be trying to void his contract and get out from under that money. Funny thing about it is, right after the report came out, Steve Cohen tweeted a bunch of happy face emojis. So, very interesting sub there for the new owner of the Mets. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Quick Hits for the week of November 21st.
Very good. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
We have a lot of news this week, man.
Oh, yeah.
The past 2, like I said, we were digging, trying to find stuff, but
we spoke about the Masters.
Yeah, we spoke about the Masters last week. But, with free agency running wild, the draft was something special this week. I don't think it was as bad as we originally thought, because I really had to go back and really look at these players' contribution, even though they didn't have a tournament, and then seeing that the teams that these players went to.
I think it's interesting, though. This was the first year that I could honestly say I did not know a majority of the players in the draft, or I felt like I didn't know them because I felt like I haven't seen college basketball in a very long time.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I knew a lot of them because I watched them in high school, and what am I?
So you're the reason why ESPN got to play high school stuff, because you watching it over here, and I gotta watch 12-year-olds over here dunking.
Well, here's the thing, though, too. Some of these guys played out here, so I got to see them play against, team that I used to play for when I was younger. And so, and I've seen them play in high school games. Like I said, I like watching the development of players. So, but as we speak about that, what was your biggest takeaways from the NBA draft? Tam, start with you.
Some teams are going to look really good next year, or in the next month or so.
Right.
And some teams are going to look really trashy. I think that the Dwight Howard to Philly thing, I don't think it's going to be a good fit. I think it's going to. I feel like where Dwight is in his career, I don't see him being that voice or that veteran of reason to kind of bring that team balance to, the Embiids and the, and the Simmons and such. I think that it's just going to be another distraction. I feel like the Knicks are going to keep nicking. Every day we go deeper into the draft, the Nets are looking more and more scary on the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
And Michael Jordan, man.
Yo,
I'm just waiting.
Talk about
I'm just
him
waiting for
picking
the
up.
for the game. I'm waiting for the one-on-one now.
Talk about him picking up LaMelo Ball at number 3, and then signing Gordon Hayward to a ridiculous $120 million contract.
I think that the Gordon Hayward contract was a real bonehead move. But I want to kind of give some shout outs to the Bell family, right?
Ball.
The Ball family. People always kind of give Archie Mannings and the Mannings their flowers of how they were able to kind of infiltrate into the NFL. But with the Bulls, you see a lot of people kind of joking on them and stuff like that, and their kids can really play. So I can kind of see Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. I can kind of see why that was a good pickup at number 3. I think that's going to be a good steal. Gordon Hayward, I mean, I feel like that's such a bonehead move. I don't think that he needs that much money. I feel like with the amount of games that he's missed, you get what I'm saying? Like, his stock is not worth that amount of bread. For how many years?
For the Gordon Hayward deal, I believe it was 4 years, $120 million.
Oof.
Well, relatively about $30 million a year.
That's painful.
I hope he has. I hope
he has insurance on that, because
insurance and option. Well, every team has player insurance, but I hope he has an option.
Insurance as far as, don't mansplain me. Insurance as far as having options to kind of liquidate that contract in the that things don't go the way they're supposed to.
No, I was agreeing with you. I wasn't turning it. No, I was agreeing with you.
Whack.
To me, and I want to touch on something that Tay said about the Knicks, right? They seem to be allergic to point guards, right? They seem to be allergic to point guards. We were talking about the Knicks probably getting Tyrese Halliburton, who ended up going to the Kings, and I think that's going to be a great 1-2 guard setup with DeAndre Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. Right, that's going to be De'Aaron Fox, not DeAndre. De'Aaron Fox and Halliburton, I think, are going to make a very good team out there. And Dre, you were clowning me for it. Listen, I'm not anti Obi Toppin, but Denny Avdia is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
The kid out of Israel that the Wizards selected with the 9th pick right after the Knicks, that boy is nasty. We are talking, 6 foot, I believe 6'6" or 6'9", 6'9", small forward, right? Kid's only 19 years old, right? The kid can really grow with the Knicks, and the way he can shoot, the way he can move, the way he can play. Listen, here's my thing. I see Obi Toppin, and I hope he proves me wrong, but I see Blake Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
I see Blake. And Blake, for all intents and purposes, great player, great dunker, right? But not really a great complete player, right? The Clippers had to move away from that, from that Blake Griffin era. And I look at Obi Toppin. I really hope that his game expands. I really have a lot of faith in Tom Thibodeau to hopefully expand that game of his and his defensive prowess. But I see Blake Griffin. And, when they and think about who they were referring him to, they're saying he plays a lot like Amare Stoudemire. And to quote Dusty Rhodes, who'd he ever beat? Right?
Don't see
what title?
Don't do that. Don't do that.
What title?
Don't do that, bro.
The smoke today, I see.
Right? Don't do that. Bro.
Listen, I'm an Amare Stoudemire. I'm an Amare fan. I'm not saying Amare wasn't good. I'm not saying Amare wasn't a great player. But Amare Stoudemire was not the centerpiece for a team that went to a title. He did not win a championship. The man could not get out of the Western Conference Finals, and he probably had one of the most loaded athletic teams in the Western Conference that were not the early 2000 Kings. I mean, the two teams in the West that I feel always got a raw deal were the early 2000 Kings with the Bibbies and the Weber, Stojakovic, and Turkoglu. Right? And Vlade Divac, probably one of the best starting fives to never win a championship.
They were cheated.
Right, they were.
They were cheated. I mean, let's not rehash history here, but there was that kind of prohibited them from going any further. The Lakers, there's no disputing that the Lakers were trying to win that series.
Right, and then you have, for everything that's talking about the fact that they never played defense, they didn't really, have a closeout star. We can't deny that what they built in Phoenix at that time with Stoudemire and Marion and Steve Nash and Leandro Barbosa and all those players. Funny enough, though, Tay, it ended up being the blueprint for what a lot of teams are doing nowadays, right? You got that stretch three, right? You got the Marion at the time. Getting a guy like Sean Marion, your power forward, to stretch out and shoot threes like that was not something that was seen a lot in the NBA at that time. Now every power forward and center is out here shooting threes, right?
Yeah.
Mike
D'Antoni, but that's the Mike D'Antoni factor.
Yeah, I mean, that's a European game.
They lost to the Spurs, right? Which was an amazing team at the time. So at the end of the day, I feel like they were built to go deep. I felt that they did go as far as their talents allowed them to go. I think their talents could have gotten them further than their coaching did. I think that was a big problem with the Phoenix Suns around that time because I was watching heavy. I was rooting for Phoenix at that time because I was a fan of the Amari Steve Nash tandem with their supporting players. But I feel like there is no way, shape, or form that a Dan D'Antoni team is going to beat a Pop team.
Oh no, definitely. That the fundamental.
I think that's what it was. And I get what you mean. Oh, he didn't beat anybody, and this and the third. But that run and gun style of basketball does not win championships. And I feel that if they would have had I don't want to say a better coach because I don't want to.
Y'all hearing this, Houston? Y'all hearing this? The run and gun does not win championships.
The run and gun does not win championships. Defense wins championships. A solid 5 wins championships. You get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like in the Spurs, you didn't have one superstar, really. You had 3 or 4 superstars. You had 3 or 4 above average A- style players who became an A+ team on the court.
Right, and you always had at least one A+ guy with Duncan or Robinson anchoring those teams.
The thing is, with them, they didn't have to be A+ every night because if Duncan wasn't A+ in game 1, you had Manu being A+ games 2 and 3. You get what I'm saying? Or Tony Parker game 4 or 5.
Even that young Kawhi Leonard. We got to see guys like Bruce Bowen playing tenacious defense. You're right. I mean, those teams fundamentally top to bottom.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I agree.
Yeah, but getting back to this draft, my last thing that I'm going to say about this Michael Jordan, Gordon Hayward thing, right? The biggest winner of the NBA draft in the free agency was Gordon Hayward. Because who else is going to spend that amount of astronomical money?
The Knicks.
Besides the Knicks. You know what I'm saying? The Knicks would have done that.
The Knicks would have spent the 40.
$200 million.
The Knicks would have spent the 40.
They would have outbid them.
I agree. And listen,
14, 15 games at most.
I think, to me, who was the biggest winner of the draft, though, Tay and Dre?
Gordon Hayward.
No, not just Gordon Hayward with free agency, but the Golden State Warriors. Yeah. Getting James Wiseman with the number 2 pick. How many times, people forget. People who watched the Warriors last year and saw how bad they were last year, right? Forget that this was a team that was in 3 straight NBA finals.
Yeah.
They forget that this team was literally waiting for Curry and Clay to come back this year to make another deep run. And I think if Curry and Clay had come back fully healthy, you would have had another deep run by the Warriors. Now, obviously, Clay going out, the Warriors real quick. Another one of those OKC first-round picks made a swap with OKC for Kelly Oubre Jr., right? Or at least they're working on that. I believe it hasn't been set in stone yet. But you get 7-foot James Wiseman, okay? Probably a guy who could have been the number 1 pick, right? Could have easily have been the number 1 pick in this draft. and you get him as a perennial playoff team. How many times do we see perennial playoff teams picking first, second, or third in a draft, right? So this was, I think, a very big pickup that went under the radar for a lot of people because people looking at Obi, people are looking at LaMelo, people looking at Anthony Edwards going to Minnesota, and other people that were picked up. But to me, James Wiseman and what the Warriors were able to do with that number 2 pick really went a little unheralded. And literally, I think between Wiseman and if they get Kelly Oubre Jr., could almost help outweigh the loss of Klay. I mean, you're never going to be Klay Thompson. Mm-hmm. Really quickly before we move on, my last thought on Klay, I just want to say this. What I love most about Klay and this injury, I'm not as worried as a lot of people, and here's why. Most people who have these type of injuries have to learn how to be shooters afterwards because they lose their athleticism, they lose their explosiveness. Klay was probably already one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous shooters in the NBA before this injury. So while Klay may lose some of his defensive explosiveness, while he may lose some of his rim running, while he may lose some of that, I think Klay Thompson, if he can come back healthy, will still be one of the most dangerous players in the NBA because no one pre-injury showed me they could stop him from shooting the ball the way he shot the ball.
But do you see him coming back to the Golden State Warriors? I think they may trade his ass.
I don't think so. You know what? They stood by Steph Curry. They did not trade Steph Curry. And remember, Curry, when he got drafted, what was 3 years straight injuries to his feet? Mm-hmm. People thought, Steph was going to be one of the biggest busts in the NBA. And then Steph turned out to be one of the top 5 players that we have in the NBA right now. Right. Yeah. The one thing I like about Golden State is they show loyalty to their players. The way they showed loyalty to Steph when they could have easily have given up on Steph Curry. And Tay, probably 90% of teams in the NBA would have given up on Steph after what happened his first 3 years after being drafted.
I
think they'll stick by Klay and at least see what can do. They owe a lot to Klay, Draymond, and Steph. And in my opinion, I think
Klay and Steph. Okay.
Draymond cost him a title. Draymond cost him a title.
Andre Iguodala.
Oh yeah.
And Kevin Durant that one. But Draymond.
And you know what's funny is we sit here, we look at these Golden State Warriors, man. And I remember the days of the Baron Davis Golden State Warriors being the first number 8 seed, right? To upseed a number 1. I think back to the old days of the Denver Nuggets. I mean, not Denver, sorry, the Golden State Warriors. When you're thinking about
TMC,
yeah, I'm really glad that the Warriors are finally getting their comeuppance in terms of like getting this run, because they've always been, even more so than the Clippers. I think the Warriors were always the forgotten team in California.
You know what's funny about the Warriors? You remember when they had Run TMC? And that year, I believe Mullen was injured. I think that's the year they got Weber, right? The year they drafted Weber. They've made some pretty fugazi moves too, if you think about it, because they could have ran it up with Run TMC and Chris Webber, and possibly made a run at something. But again, that people don't talk about that enough. Like I said, the mix-ups with when they had Monte Ellis and Steph Curry at the same time, not knowing what to do with them. At one point in time, not having a center on the team during the We Believe time, having like as a Dookie play or Steven Jackson guard Yao Ming.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I think but even fast forwarding now, I think the Warriors, if this Kelly Oubre deal goes through, they'll be in good shape. They won't be championship contenders, but they'll probably mess up somebody's playoff run for sure.
Oh yeah, I think and a little
it puts them ahead of the Trailblazers.
This is true. I think a little under the radar story that did not get picked up for the NBA draft, and this is the kind of stuff that I find and I love. Right, total of 8 players were picked in the NBA draft of Nigerian heritage this year. 8 players in the draft this year of Nigerian heritage. We talk about the NBA being the quintessential black league. But really talking about, African talent. And when we talk about the development that the NBA has helped do in Africa, and trying to do a lot of community work and really help build a lot of programs out there. People forget how big the NBA does in terms of community stuff with the world. How big the NBA blew up in Asia, how big the NBA has blowing up in Africa. Really great. So 8 Nigerian-born players picked in this year's NBA draft. Really cool under the radar story here.
Most definitely. Just again, literally the last stuff for this. Just a few names I'm gonna like have to look out for that got drafted. Of course, I said Obi Toppin to the Knicks. They just need a point guard, and he'll be fine. Him and Robinson in the front court in the back court is going to be something else. Cole Anthony to Orlando. They have a bit of a point guard jam, but I think Cole Anthony, he's a better version of his father, Greg Anthony. So watch out for that.
Greg Anthony was a solid player. I mean, you guys may not have really remembered seeing him during his Knick years, but there were many nights that he bailed out John Starks in them and Doc Rivers too.
The man looked 57 when he was playing with the Knicks.
No. I agree because I wasn't old enough to watch it live, but watching back, like I said, Greg Anthony was nice.
You watch it with a 2010, 2000 bias because the talent has superseded the solid team. But when you look at I always try to look at it from a retro point of view, remembering where I was at that time. He was definitely an above average player. Yeah.
And Trey Jones, he was the point guard on that Duke team that had Zion Williamson, Cam Reddish, RJ Barrett. He's going to the Spurs. He's going to a place where the culture is like Duke, and he gets to be in a system where he's able to learn from veterans around the team and pop just to teach him the right way. So definitely keep an eye out on him. So let's jump into the NFL, right? So the NFL is starting today is buffing up their COVID rules.
Finally? 12 weeks into the season?
Because we've been asking about them to do this for a while.
The season's almost halfway over.
Right.
Over halfway over.
So what they are doing, they're saying everyone has to have a certain amount of COVID. I apologize. Here it is, right? NFL is placing all teams in intensive protocol starting today to mitigate the risk of COVID-19, right? The use of masks will be mandatory at all times in team facilities, including during practice and weight rooms. Meetings must be held either virtually or in the largest indoor space possible with approval by the league. Meals have to be made available for grab and go to avoid players and staff congregating in cafeterias. Time spent in locker room has to be limited. Clubs operating under the intensive protocols have reduced close contacts by more than 50% since the 5th week of the regular season, according to the memo obtained by the Associated Press. They're basically trying to condense everything because of the holidays, right? And, since everybody's going to be around their family for the holidays and everybody's going to be around each other for the holidays, the biggest thing is this: how do you control like players doing what they're supposed to do, what they're not supposed to do? Because when you come back from this break, even teams that's not playing on Thursday, do you tell players, no, you can't go home, you spend the Thanksgiving here? How do you really, really control it? And why did they wait so long to do it now? Pete, I'm going to start with you with this.
Yeah. Listen, the NBA did it best. The NBA did it best with the bubble. Even Major League Baseball kind of did it well with having limited travel, really creating 2 mini bubbles and things like that. So, the NFL, the biggest problem always was you play once a week and you let these guys go home. You let them do what they want to do, right? And unfortunately, with pro athletes, listen, we see it with regular people, okay? But now you're talking about a pro athlete with pro athlete money, right? They're going to do what they want to do. They're going to still go to the club. They're going to still do this. They're going to still do that. Right. We keep seeing businesses having to be unfortunately shut down. We have New Jersey, who yesterday had an executive order that's now limiting, events. There were 2 professional wrestling events that were supposed to happen today. One today, one tomorrow in New Jersey. The one for today had to be canceled, unfortunately, due to like the last minute executive order. We're talking about New York may go back into code orange, next week, and it's tough. The NFL should have, in my opinion, done a bubble, of some sort, maybe done multiple bubbles where they had conferences in a bubble, did all your in-conference games first, and then swap the teams that needed to swap. Because we know that there's always, you're talking about you play each team in your division twice. Right. So that right there is what 6 games. Right. 6 to 8 games, depending on how many teams are in your division. Right. Then you play alternating division in the other conference, and then you have your rivalry games within your own conference. Mm-hmm. You could have easily have done all the conference games in one bubble and then swapped it and said, okay, now we're just going to take the divisions that need to, the interconference teams that need to swap, and you're going to go to the other bubble and play the teams you need to play. And it's kind of terrible again because you play only once a week. So now you're telling guys to stay in one spot for 6 days without doing anything. The NFL has always had it tough. They were always going to have it the toughest because of their schedule. The fact that they waited this long is a problem. I feel like every week I'm reading stories about a team placing 4, 5, 6 players on the COVID list, right? And it's just like we're already seeing the effect it's having the NCAA
already.
And these are college kids who are on campus.
And these NCAA games are only like 5, 6 games in. The NFL is close to double-digit games.
The Pac-12 has only played 3 games. I think this is their 3rd week. The Pac-12 is only their 3rd week. Tay's reaction last week during Quick Hits when I announced that the Alabama LSU game was being postponed. Like, that's a big money game for college football. Damn well they probably would have been like, no, under any we're playing this game. Yeah. The fact that they had to postpone that game meant something. And the fact that the NFL, listen, I'm glad that the NFL has not had any serious cases. I'm glad that no one in the NFL has gotten seriously sick. Thankfully, no one has there's been no fatalities in the NFL. Okay. But you've got a team of the roster's 50-something? Easily. Plus practice squad, plus coaches, plus, team personnel. It's way too hard to have 100 people do this. And again, it really is faulty because, again, they're playing once a week. Better late than never. Congratulations, NFL. But once again, the deafness of the NFL to wait until the last possible minute to do this.
100% agree. Tay, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm going to echo Peter. Mm-hmm. On a lot of these points that he brought up, or a lot of points that I had as well. I mean, I feel as if they needed to be some type of preseason protocols in place because as you've seen, and as we've heard, and as we've reported, there have been weeks, like I think the Giants have an outbreak of COVID this week. You get what I'm saying? I think it's their turn. And then it's hard to do contact tracing when you allow people to go home and allow people to travel, do what they want to do when they're not in the facilities. And these teams are huge teams. As you say, these practice squad teams are big. And I feel like, better late than never. But this is the only I feel, professional sport that is allowing fans in the stands while they have no real COVID-19 protocol. Now, granted, we're hearing a lot of news about a vaccine coming, but that's not like anytime soon. That doesn't have anything to. I think the first real event that'll be measured by the effectiveness of the vaccine will be maybe WrestleMania. If I'm not
Yes, it'd probably be WrestleMania in Tampa,
right,
and that's a hot spot too. Like,
yeah, Florida has been a hot. I think they're almost at 1 million cases by themselves. As of this morning, the U.S. is nearing 12 million cases of the coronavirus, with over 255,000 fatalities. Now, granted, as you said, Peter, as well, you know, we've thankfully heard that there hasn't been any severe cases with NFL players, right? But what about their families?
Yeah.
What about the people that they've been coming in contact with? So it's like, at the end of the day, as we've known, they weren't going to shut the season down. We knew this, you know, but I feel as if, what week are we in? 10? 9?
10.
Yeah.
We're in week 10. You have like, what, 5 more games? 6 more games, maybe?
6 to 7 more games because they go like 17 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, like 6 or 7 more games depending on the team. You get what I'm saying? And then the playoffs. So it's like they politicized it, and now they're paying the benefit. Now they're reaping what they sowed.
Yeah, they I just don't think the NFL went about it the wrong way. I honestly think the NFL went about it the wrong way. I was saying this earlier on an early edition of After the Year on Instagram that they need to have something in place.
Yeah, and I was the one who said that they had the biggest head start of any other league.
Right, right. Hockey came back fast. Baseball came back fast. NBA came back.
Hockey did it good. NBA did it better. You know what I'm saying? Yes. MLB, the beginning of the MLB season, the training camp had they were a little rocky, but they got it together. Now, at the end of the day, like I said, they had a 6-month head start on COVID. So at the end of the day, you could have made proper protocols, even if you did not want to have the logistical nightmare of trying to have over 100, maybe 300 people traveling each week. When you think of coaching staff, practice squads, teams, first, second, and third string, you're thinking about personnel for maybe 250 to 300 people per game.
And the NFL playing in the winter months, we always know the NFL as the winter sport. You know, obviously the Super Bowl is usually in late January, early February. You know, and so obviously the NFL season finished, like Tay said, right before COVID really exploded in the United States.
Right.
About 8 months.
Yeah. And so, you know, you could have easily have done a truncated season, right? You could have easily done a shortened season. You could have easily have said, listen, we're going to try and wrap things up by December. Okay, so that we're not playing anywhere.
Do all that.
Right.
They didn't even need to shorten any. Because the thing is, they had the head start.
Yeah.
They had a chance to see how the MLB did it. They had a chance to see how the NBA did it. They had a chance to see how hockey did it. They had a chance to see how MMA did it. They had a chance to see how WWE did it. You get what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you know, you have all these case studies that you could have taken and used it to your advantage. You cannot act like the fans are the problem.
Right. And then that's another thing. You know, you had teams in the NFL who were letting fans in the building. They're like, oh, well, we can do 25%. Let's do 25%. Screw it. Let's get whatever we can in here.
Right. And 25% is like 15,000.
Right.
For some places.
The thing is, I don't know if it's, I feel grateful that they're able to have fans, and you have not heard of any significant outbreaks where the fans were.
Right. That's the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing. So now that lets me know that that case, if I'm a league owner, if I work in the sports world and in that corporate thing, it gives me the idea that maybe the next season of my sport, I can have it with maybe a 10% capacity. maybe X and Y, but that's besides the point.
Right.
But the major point is this is careless.
It's funny.
Extremely careless.
I may have the numbers wrong in terms of time, but I believe I heard this week the rise to the first million cases of COVID in the United States took, I think, about at least a month or two to go from 0 to 1 million.
Mm-hmm.
The rise over the last week, we hit 1 million cases. We went from 3 million, I think, to 4 million in the span of 5 days over the last week. Right.
And you see where the outbreaks are getting bad is it's getting bad in those rural states that don't have mask mandates. That not all of them have NFL teams either.
Right.
But a lot of them don't have the mandates, the social distancing mandates, and then even a player's wife, I think it was Baker Mayfield's wife, caught real heat on TMZ for saying like this is like prison or this feels like some type of slavery or something like that.
Yeah, tell a prisoner or a slave, listen,
tell a black person what slavery feels like.
This is the life you can live, and you don't have to be in prison or be enslaved. I guarantee you, they will follow the rules and take that life in a second.
Yeah.
If wearing this protects you and your families, why is it? I don't get what she don't have to run miles or run plays. The NFL, it's irrational and irresponsible. Like I said, they could have made some type of specialty masks that people wear for fitness.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? They could have worn that. They wear gloves during the games, during the timeouts. They could have sanitized their hands. Something. They've had nothing.
And the problem is the NFL is very hard-headed. They want to do things the way they want to. Oh, this is how we've always done it. This is this and this is that. How many times did we see John Gruden and coaches on the sidelines with taking their mask down, not having their mask on at all, right? Teams having to get fined. I mean, listen, they made fun of it. They made a meme out of it. But if Andy Reid could coach an entire game wearing the big foggy face shield, you can wear a mask.
And like what I said at the
beginning. Clint Frazier played this season. If you don't know Clint Frazier, outfielder for New York Yankees, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. You would see pictures of him in batting practice, full-on Bandito mask on his face. He would be playing in the outfield with his mask on. Now, if you've never played baseball, you are way more than 6 feet away from the nearest outfielder when you're outside at your position. Okay, and he's still out there wearing the mask, no fans in the stadium, no nothing. So if he can play the outfield and play the sport of baseball wearing his mask, there is no reason why no one in the NFL cannot or should not be doing it. This is not a problem of freedoms being taken away. This is privileges that we just can't have right now because we're trying to stop something from happening, right? So save your money. Save your millions of dollars. You don't need to go to the strip club right now. You don't need to go and have a backyard pool party at your house right now. You don't need to do these things, right? I get it. People are like, oh, time is precious, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but your life is precious. And if somebody, how guilty you would feel. I read a story about a month or two ago that there was a wedding up in the Northeast, I think up in like Maine or Rhode Island or something like that, where like 60% of the guests ended up contracting COVID-19 from the wedding. 2 people died, and it was 2 people that weren't even at the wedding. They were family of people who went to the wedding, who then had contact with the people who were at the wedding, contracted COVID, and then passed away. So you're telling me, like it's come on. You're a multi-billion-dollar league.
Like here's the thing. Like we're not saying telling people to not enjoy themselves, but just like anything, be responsible, wear a mask. Like, we're having a viewing party on Sunday. All of our viewing parties that we've had in the COVID era, everybody, if you see pictures of it, we don't post many pictures of it up, but if you're in there, everybody's wearing a mask. Everyone's wearing a mask. Like, I don't care how long I've known you. My mask is on when I'm not eating, and it's we have to be safe. And the NFL, at the end of the day, I said this at the beginning of the season. I'm saying now, it's a cash grab. They could have did this a long time ago and kind of fixed the protocols, especially like they could have did this a couple of weeks ago when the whole offensive line of the Raiders tested positive for COVID. Like the whole offensive line.
Listen, you got enough money that they're doing rapid testing 3 times, 4 times a week. Right. Think about it. That whole line, like you said, got put on the COVID list, but then that whole line got activated the Saturday right before the game and played in the game. So that means they were able to get 3 tests within a span of 6 days, all of them processed and passed in order for that offensive line to get cleared. You got enough money for that. You got enough money to put together, like Tay said, specialty mask mandates, and do what you need to do.
Right. Agreed. Just some lighter news this weekend.
On a lighter note.
Right. On a way lighter note, Survivor Series is this weekend.
Woo!
Yes.
Before we get into that, I want to kind of do a cheap plug. Yesterday, I joined a special episode of the Big Four, which is another show under the Jobbeteers podcast network.
Yeah.
So Janelle and I went into a really in-depth conversation about 30 years of Undertaker, our experiences, and I think it'll be a good listen. So I think it drops today.
Yes, it definitely does drop today. It did drop today. So today it is Saturday.
My sister.
So yes.
I love her.
Shout out to Janelle from HR. She was everywhere this week. She did a whole bunch from Raw Talk with Mike and Katie at the studio to Zone Talk with her and Amanda to Jobbeteers podcast with her, Black and Wilkins, to the Big Four with T. Yo, one of the hardest working women out there. So
I just want to say though, with Survivor Series coming up, I think it's necessary that we let the world know. I'm the captain. I'm the captain of this team. All right. Boy.
Everybody's claiming captain of what team?
I'm the captain. I'm the captain of the Yerrr Sports Show Survivor Series team. I'm the captain of the team. This is what we're gonna do. Me, AJ Styles, and Bailey have just had we had a meeting, the captain's meeting.
Yes.
Okay. And yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
everybody's the captain is
right. So I guess So as captain, that means you get jumped. Right? Like, that's what it means. Like I said, I don't mind defending my spot as captain, but if you wanna, like I said, if you want to take it, you just gotta.
I'll come at you like the Mrs. Father. Let's go.
But we'll get into the review later on. But let's talk about Survivor Series teams, right? I gave y'all a task, and I want to know who is, like, if you had to pick 5, you not including yourself as a performer, but you can include yourself as a manager. You're a manager. You have a team. Let's say like the Heenan family or the Dangerous Alliance. You had to pick 5 people for your Survivor Series team. Tay, who are your 5 that you're picking? And just to spice things up, this is a mixed tag team.
No, I have 5 men. I have 5 men.
You have 5 men, 5 men, 5 women. Oh,
and is this hold on? Is this all time? Is this all companies? Anybody? We don't just have
anyone, anybody.
I'm just sick of keeping mine to wrestling because
no. We're not gonna say we're gonna have LeBron James on the team.
If that's the case, I'm picking Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman.
Karl Malone. Well, they were wrestlers. They were wrestlers. They count.
So, for my 5 men, it'll be Randy Orton, I think he is has the most Soul Survivors. He's been the Soul Survivor the most time in history. Undertaker,
of course.
The Rock, Stone Cold, and Brian Pillman. And for women,
yes,
Charlotte Flair, Nikki Bella, Awesome Kong,
Yeah.
Luna Vachon,
Yes.
and Sensational Sherry.
Ooh, you got some monsters on your team. You're gonna be out there talking the most.
Everybody, especially my women's team. Nobody's not messing with my women's team.
Yeah, your women's team is type solid. No, I ain't gonna lie to you. Pete, who's your 5?
So, one of my favorite Survivor Series team is actually, an actual Survivor Series team, the Legion of Doom, Ultimate Warrior, Kerry Von Erich.
That was a good one.
That was one of the great gimmicks and run in the WWE's notwithstanding. If you tell me I got the Ultimate Warrior, the Legion of Doom, and Kerry Von Erich, I'm just like, oh crap.
Okay.
Right.
Kerry Von Erich. Let me tell you something. That Texas tornado was a big deal back in like 1991. I really thought that he was, I was a little girl, but I really loved the Texas tornado gimmick. I was so sad when I found out that he committed suicide.
Yeah, so sad.
So
it was a little tough for me, right? Because it was like, okay, do I go old school? Do I go new school? How many do I pick from other companies? Because I would really think about kind of mixing and matching some stuff, and so I decided to go a little bit of a. I would go. So I'm gonna take Flair.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take Flair. I'm gonna take Kurt Hennig. Because I'm also going to take Randy Orton. Okay. Like right there, you have 3 incredible performers. I'm going to take HBK, Shawn Michaels. And then the last one was a little bit of a hard one for me. And I was going to go a little bit off the beaten path.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking Minoru Suzuki.
Jesus. Jesus. The match is not even going to start.
Yeah.
I have an honorable mention for Kurt Angle.
Yes, definitely.
But I feel like
my honorable too.
Kurt Hennig is going to be able to out wrestle almost anybody you have in that ring, in my opinion. Flair is just going to be Flair. Probably one of the dirtiest player in the game for a reason. Randy Orton, probably one of the most technically gifted athletes we have of the last 20 years, right? And literally, I mean, I hate that it's branded, but it's not wrong. RKO literally out of nowhere. You give me someone like HBK, who we have seen in so many wars will not give up and will not drop, and another one who will hit the super kick out of anywhere, right? Hit that sweet chin music out of anywhere.
I mentioned that was a finisher.
Right.
Yeah, I do too.
And then
we'll talk about this a couple months back. I'm like, damn, the super kick is just not the same anymore.
And then as you saw with Dre's reaction, you put Minoru Suzuki on that team. The man's just gonna bulldoze through everyone and beat the crap out of you could put the Big Show in the ring with Suzuki and Suzuki just be like
beat the hell out of the Big Show.
Right. The women's team for me was a little tougher. And I had a little bit more spice to it. Mm-hmm. I want Charlotte Flair.
Mm-hmm.
I want Tessa Blanchard.
Yeah. Ooh.
I want Bayley.
Mm-hmm.
I
said no.
To counter Amazing Kong and Luna Vachon, give me Aja Kong.
Okay.
All right.
Let's go with Aja Kong, and that's kind of like my Minoru Suzuki pick. Just go beat the crap.
Let me tell you something. She not messing with Luna.
Her and Luna will have a war that gets both of them disqualified.
Right.
Luna was a tough broad.
No, she was. I'm not denying that.
There's not too many women that you call a broad. Luna Vachon was a broad, and I mean that in a good way.
Oh yeah. And for my 5th pick. Again, I'm going pure aggression. Give me Jazz.
Oof.
Give me Jazz. I feel like if you want to go knockout, drag out fight between Aja Kong and Jazz, you got yourself one hell of a wall to get through. Technically gifted wise, Tessa and Charlotte can go. Probably one of my greatest memories of watching Tessa in the ring was watching her Iron Woman match with Mercedes Martinez on the Independence. Probably one of the greatest matches I've seen
I heard about it. It was really good.
And Charlotte and Bayley, I mean, listen, no disrespect to Sasha, no disrespect to Becky, but Charlotte and Bayley to me are just ridiculously gifted. I like that Bayley can go in so many different directions. Charlotte, to me, is the quintessential athlete. And so,
but I think Sasha Banks is the best pure wrestler.
Oh yes, no, listen, don't get me wrong.
Out of the four, and let me tell you something. Becky had the grit.
Yep.
Charlotte had the athleticism. Sasha had she is a natural wrestler. This is her. Like, I feel like she's the best I think she's the best technical out of all of them. To be honest.
She is the best. She's the best counter wrestler, in my opinion. Right.
She's the best on defense.
Yeah.
The best on defense.
And I think to me, the only thing I look at is when I look at Bayley, I feel like she has so much fluidity in everything that she can do. Charlotte, obviously, just ridiculously gifted in so many different ways.
Girl. And, the thing is, I was never like, I don't really, how I tune in and out, but I feel like where these girls are, where these women are, I feel like they kind of deserve to be.
And no disrespect to a lot of the great Survivor Series people. I mean, Triple H has been on some great Survivor Series teams. Yes. Undertaker has been on some great Survivor Series teams. It's tough, because there were some guys from like Ring of, like, I was this close to saying, give me Shinsuke Nakamura for my Survivor Series team, but don't give me the WWE Shinsuke Nakamura, right? Give me the Shinsuke Nakamura that I used to watch in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I had Taz on my list, the old ECW Taz. Again, who is messing with that boy? So it's really tough when you think about all these different companies. When you think about guys you could have gotten from Ring of Honor, imagine me putting a Survivor Series team together and say, yo, let me get Homicide. Let me get Homicide. Let me get Taz. Let me get Minoru Suzuki. Like,
the match is not starting.
Right. With just those three guys alone, you probably can go up against a 5-person team. But it's tough, and there have been some great Survivor Series teams. Oh, I really miss the old school Survivor Series feel.
Me too.
I saw a post on Instagram recently that said, and obviously they're never going to do it because Survivor Series, many people may not know this, it's actually the second biggest WWE branded pay-per-view after the WrestleMania, and things like that. It's the longest running. Then you have Royal Rumble, obviously SummerSlam, but Survivor Series, someone said on Instagram, they should get rid of it and just call it and just bring back bragging rights because that's what they've turned it into.
But I understand why. Because at the end of the day, they try to keep the rosters so separate. So this is your chance to kind of see these people in action because you don't really have a chance to build like the proper inter-branded storylines to kind of compensate for what used to be in the past. I'm echoing really weird.
And I will say, Tay, I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I feel like this year's Survivor Series build is a little bleh because it doesn't include NXT. I loved what they did with NXT last year. I love the way they integrated it. I love the way they gave NXT such shine. I loved people just showing up and doing things. And I think what's interesting, because they talked about it with Bianca on SmackDown this week when she was on commentary, Michael Cole made a reference to the idea of last year you were on Team NXT.
Now you're on a
for
real
Survivor
team.
Series. Now you're on a real team. Now you're on Team Blue, right? And it's things like that that I feel could still integrate NXT. And it could really help with people still getting, even though NXT is now on television, it could really help expose people to people from NXT, because I don't know about other people, but I know I get really, really big pops when I see NXT talent show up at the Royal Rumble and in other situations. I would have loved to have seen NXT in Survivor Series.
But look. Look at the standout from last year's Survivor Series, right? You had the Keith Lee stood out really well.
Yes.
You had Bianca stand out really well. You had Was Bianca saying that really well?
Yeah, Riddle, I thought
Yeah.
stood out a little.
Riddle, right? And because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we're still waiting for these guys who kind of, and then a few people who are transferring over into the main roster through that gimmick, the retribution gimmick.
Right.
I feel like it'll be too much to introduce more people into the fold as we don't know how resonating these people who came back from NXT are with the fans there, because there's no fans in the stands.
You know what I would have liked to have seen though, and this is very interesting because just watching NXT, I religiously watch the NXT product. I would like to see a Survivor Series team of the former main roster talent, right? Give me a Finn, give me Breezango, give me a couple of those guys who feel like, you know what, we had to go back to NXT and do things and kind of just come up and show up again and be like, you know what, we've been here, we've done that, we went back, people almost, to me, that is almost a better built-in story for a retribution type angle, where you're talking about those guys and those talent who used to be on the main roster, felt slighted, felt disrespected, went back to NXT and felt like I had to show you what you didn't know what to do with.
I like that.
Right. I think you're right. I think that's what they should have did with retribution in general.
I feel 100%. I 100% agree. Now I get the Mustafa Ali integration into retribution. I feel like that was a good fit, right?
Yes.
But I do feel like there's so much more that could have been done with that angle. There's so much more that still could be done with that angle. You get what I'm saying?
Time.
They still have time before that window of opportunity kind of closes.
But I only see two people outside of Ali. I only see two people breaking out from that group.
Yeah, they need to add more people to that group.
Dominic Dijakovic, or T-Bar. I see him obviously getting used after this gimmick and doing other things. And obviously Mia Yim. I don't see them doing anything with Dio Madden, right? I don't see them doing anything with Shane Thorne as incredible. Listen, make fun of Slapjack all you want. Shane Thorne as a wrestler is incredibly talented. But I don't see them doing anything with Shane Thorne.
They could be a tag team.
Yeah,
Slapjack is the X-Pac of the group.
He is.
No, but don't say the X-Pac of the group though.
No. I'm not saying it in terms of like he's the X-Pac of the group though. No, Shane Thorne could go.
I like his name number 6 better.
And Chris, Chris in the chat, I would argue with you on that point. Chris said that the NXT roster depth is not able to hang with Raw and SmackDown. I would politely, debate you on that, because I think, you don't get to really see all of the people in NXT, right? There's a lot of talent in NXT that you just don't get to see on an every week basis, right? And so it seems like the Raw roster or the SmackDown roster is so much bigger or has so much depth. I actually think the most deep roster is the NXT roster. I just think a lot of people don't know how much talent is actually still hidden on the on the NXT roster, either who are still at the Performance Center, who don't have storylines yet, and things like that. Because again, that women's, in my opinion, the best women's division in the WWE has been the NXT women's division, because you have just seen them cycle through so many great stories and use new women, right? You went from, Shayna Baszler's got it. Asuka's got to go. Let's get Ember. Let's get Shayna Baszler in there. And they made them into the top women. Oh, Shayna's got to go. Let's get Rhea Ripley in there. Oh, Rhea's, let's get Io Shirai. Now you got Dakota Kai. You got all these women.
I feel like there's still so much stuff that needs to be done with the Biancas, and even like the women like the Lacey Evans, like the people who were kind of getting that momentum in the beginning part of the year. And then when you add more people and you still have the belt on someone like an Asuka and like a Sasha, these women are going to be lost in the fold. Like, I thought Rhea Ripley would have been on the main roster by now, and I'm being completely honest.
After Mania, I thought she was going to be on
the main roster by now. But they kind of, but at the end of the day, I feel like some of the best guys from this year in NXT are on Raw and SmackDown right now, or Raw.
Yeah.
You have two of the biggest guys to me making headways in NXT in the beginning of, I mean, barring the old Undisputed Era guys. I don't know a lot of those people in that group. Forgive me, but all you were hearing about was Keith Lee. Since last year's Survivor Series, he was the last member of the NXT team and got eliminated by Roman. And then you've been hearing about Riddle for a while. So I think they need to kind of push these people's momentums a little bit more and then kind of integrate more people in the NXT into the storylines. Now, I get that retribution angle that you had just said. Beautiful. I could see it. And the thing is, I don't normally relate or agree with fan booking.
Right.
Never. Because I feel like, fans can't normally book their way out of a Southwest flight going to Fort Lauderdale.
Right.
Okay? I like that because it would have given more complexity, but you still have women on the main roster that need to kind of get that momentum. Now that Sasha and Bayley are kind of moving away from each other, now you have Carmella back. Now you have, Bianca finding her way. You still have Liv Morgan. You still have, we want to see what's going to happen with Lana.
Am I the only one who feels bad for Billie Kay?
I feel bad for Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. I feel bad for them both.
Let me tell you something. They should have. I feel like there's such a missed opportunity with those tag titles. I feel like there's a chance for, if you would, the Iconics, I feel, were the only real tag team on the roster since the Bellas.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Impact, before I give my team, Impact is doing it right again. And because it's Impact, not so many people are understanding. There are so many teams that they have on Impact, and some that they're bringing in, and
their women's roster is used well. They have a deep.
Right.
They have probably one of the deepest women's rosters, and yet I can actually tell you a lot of things about every woman on their roster and how they've been integrated into the shows week to week.
Look at the match. Look at one of the matches in the tournament. The Sea Stars versus Tasha and
Kiera Hogan.
Kiera. Those are like the Sea Stars are so great. First of all, they're so nice in person. They're the sweetest. They're two of the sweetest people in person. So is Tasha and Kiera. But to be able to use talent outside and kind of be like, hey, we'll be able to use you again at some point in time. Basically, use it for their roster. It makes the women's tag team belt seem important on Impact. In the E, it's like, all right, these are just placeholders for people who can't win the women's title right now.
Because I have not forgotten about my Shayna Baszler.
Right. Shayna Baszler should be women's champion.
In the main event program too. It's like we see everybody loves a shiny new thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's. Go ahead, Tay. I apologize.
Shayna should be that monster that's ripping, because you have the two biggest titles held by women are both held by good guys.
Right. And Shayna, to me, if you were going to go the route of, it's funny because I look at that tag team with Shayna and Nia, and I look at, okay, if you want to build Nia as this monster that nobody can beat, right? Because think about it. Whenever Asuka has beaten Nia, it's always been like disqualification or count out. It's never been like a full clean pin. No one has, I think, really, when you look at like overpowering Nia Jax. To me, one of the ways you could have introduced to Shayna Baszler is very similar to the way you introduced her for the build-up for Survivor Series last year. You could have had Nia Jax as the women's champion and run through that women's division, kind of like an Asuka. Nobody can stop Nia Jax. Who's going to stop? I've beaten everybody. And almost Kevin Owens-like when he came out to face John Cena, have a Shayna Baszler come out and put Nia on her ass, right? And be the woman that's like, I can take you down.
Now they're in a buddy comedy.
Right.
And it's terrible.
It's all right. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not seeing where I feel like, you have kind of like the Mandy Rose and what's the name?
Dana Brooke.
Kind of. Then you have now Liv Morgan and Ruby Riott.
Yeah, you got the Riot Squad back.
I feel like the women's tag team titles, I feel like someone needs to have a long, meaningful run with them. I feel like Bailey and Sasha, they had the first title. You know, it was pretty cool. The Iconics, I feel like, there's some. You know, I was talking about it with Janelle yesterday. You know, she's one of those people who feel like the Iconics needed to break up, and I feel like they weren't ready yet. I feel like there wasn't enough done, and I think that everyone loves Peyton Royce, and I get it, and I like Peyton Royce too. I think she's dope, but do not sleep on Billie Kay.
Right, she is great.
She has great timing. She has a great brand. I feel like she can go far. You get what I'm saying? But I feel like people, like I said, they love the shiny new thing. They always felt like one person was the Shawn Michaels and one person was the Marty
Jannetty. Always.
Forgetting that when the Rockers were a tag team, Shawn Michaels was not the star.
Right. And Marty was listen, Marty couldn't get out of his own way, but Marty was great.
Marty was when the Rockers were together in the 80s, Marty was the star.
And even when they broke up, like I said, Marty was great on his own.
He was the first one, I think, to get a singles title out of the two of them, too.
Yeah. And don't sleep on the new Rockers either, because Marty and the guy who eventually became Al Snow.
Leaf Garrett or something like that. He was Leaf something.
Yeah, Leif Cassidy.
Leif Cassidy. Like,
they actually did a really good job. And again, people will tell you, had Marty Jannetty been able to get out of his own way, Marty Jannetty could have been a really big star in the WWE.
Yeah, people always say, especially like y'all's generation, like the younger kids, they be like, "Oh well, he's the Jannetty." I'm like, don't. When you go back to old Rockers,
right?
Jannetty was the leader. Shawn was no breakout star until he put Marty Jannetty's head through the shower glass through the barbershop window.
Yeah,
Marty Jannetty put Shawn Michaels over.
And Sherry
took him to the next level.
Right.
Yes.
So Shawn had help. Shawn had a lot of help.
He had the talent, but it was just the direction. It was the direction that they went in that time. Marty Jannetty was definitely way more popular at the time than Shawn.
Gotcha. Yep.
And in the ring, many people would say athletically a little bit more talented than Shawn.
Because he was better on the mic in the late 80s, early 90s. Shawn Michaels was kind of the secondary person. It's just where the chips fall.
I will say this to touch on something that Tay said. I liked what Sasha and Bailey did with the tag titles. One of the greatest thing about the women's tag titles was when it was first introduced was that it could be defended on all three brands. And Sasha and Bailey were really the only team to take advantage of going to NXT and actually defending that championship. And I really like the fact that can be done. And I think that could be done very, very well to help talent from NXT, help talent on the main roster really keep that title fresh. I was not a fan of the Iconics breaking up. There's, in my opinion, outside of the tag team division in the WWE, the women's division is, in my opinion, one of the most underutilized and not under-resourced. They have a bevy of resources, but it is underutilized. In the WWE, to me, that's the division besides the tag team division that just doesn't get in my view, the right usage.
Right. But the thing, I don't think it's the right usage. I think it's the fact that it's the time and place. When you have so many talented women on a roster, like even before during the Divas era, people crap all over the Divas era. Those girls was just working with what they were given. You get what I'm saying? And I hate that it was a negative connotation with it. But there's only one belt per brand. Not everybody's going to have a chance to be a champion. Kurt Hennig should have been a champion, but it was the wrong time. He came up during Hogan's time, Macho's time. You get what I'm saying? And now, like, you have people like the Lana. Lana was really popular at one time. She could have had a women's championship run and been successful, meaning that her popularity was off the chain. Rusev Day, Lana Day, if he would have had the title and she would have had the title, it would have been successful at that time.
Right. I agree. So
and Natalia's still there. Do not sleep on Natalya.
Yeah, Natalya is an episode in itself because I feel like she's probably the most underrated women's wrestler
of all time.
Like
of
the
all
most
time.
Underrated women wrestler of all time. But
she's the last of the Mohicans.
Yeah. So, but here's my Survivor Series team, and I'm going to start with the women. right?
Mhm.
I have to have Charlotte Flair, of course. That's all of us in agreement. You have to have Charlotte Flair. I'm gonna grab Awesome Kong as well. You need the power and the strengths on that team. You definitely do. Tessa as well. Again, her and Charlotte. I think the dynamic. I know, you know, Tessa is great in the ring. Tessa's great in the ring. Someone that's gonna surprise you. I'm gonna add China as well.
Oh man, honorable mention.
I'm gonna add China to it as well because I'm not saying China was the best in the ring. China wasn't the best in the ring, but for what she did and how she was able to go with both men and women, China was dope. She doesn't get enough.
She didn't have to be a technical superstar. She just had to go in there. She repped for the tall, big women.
Yeah, you was about to say something, but and I'm gonna add somebody who's 5 years in, but she's gonna have a major impact still. I'm gonna add Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa gives me Thunder Rosa is essentially AEW's Sasha Banks. It's AEW's version of Sasha Banks. If we had to compare, both very technically sound in the ring, very out there characters. I think she would work with that team. It'd just be a whole bunch of running around. She's like a woman. I thought she could have been like a woman Rey Mysterio, but she's more of a heel right now, so we'll see. But for the men, on my men's team, I'm gonna start off with the tag team. Gotta have Legion of Doom as my on my Survivor Series team list. If not,
Trey, question.
Yo,
LOD or Road Warriors?
Oh no, Road Warriors, not LOD.
Okay, we're going old school. Yeah. Legion of Doom here.
Yeah. We're going where they would go to territories and people would think like they really didn't like them, and like where they like where they would main event like house shows and stuff.
And they would kill people.
They would kill people and then just high five, be like, "Hey, you did a good job getting killed." Again, the greatest Survivor Series competitor of all time, Randy Orton, of course. I'm gonna go with one of my favorites of New Japan ever, Kazuchika Okada. He adds a lot to that team.
Okay, going with Okada.
Yeah. I was thinking of Naito as well, and Tanahashi, but I think I think Okada would be good in that spot. And
we good.
And AJ Styles would be my fifth. Just rounding out just the athleticism and just the style clashing, no pun intended, between everybody's team. Again, honorable mention, of course, The Undertaker, of course, because that's his pay-per-view. Like you said, Kurt Angle.
So many notable debuts happened on Survivor Series.
Right. Stone Cold would be an honorable mention too.
Was Young next big thing Brock ever on a Survivor Series team? Because imagine how destructive that boy would have been on a Survivor Series team.
Oh, that's a good question.
He would have been what Braun Strowman is to Survivor Series at that time.
It'd been F5 and people left and right.
Right. Like there would be no reason to have more people on the Survivor Series team.
And imagine like Brock's like the last member of that team, and Brock
was. Oh no, this was 2003. I don't think he was next big thing anymore. I think he's already big thing.
Right.
So he was Team Angle versus Team Lesnar.
Yeah.
Vince hated that nickname.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Heyman has an interview about it, about how Vince doesn't like the nickname.
This kid's gonna be the next big thing.
Oh, that's awful.
That nickname sucks.
But
and then what ended up being? That's some good.
Yeah.